Antibiotic Resistance by Nick Mirabile and Noah Faiq.
In this presentation, we will cover the basics of antibiotics, the history of antibiotics, the basics of bacteria, resistance, how resistance can occur, fast facts about resistance, the unfortunate story of Simon Macario, how to stop it, and references.
Dr. Michael Graham, researcher of antibiotic-resistant bacteria, states, "There's a real problem with these resistant strains of bacteria. Eventually, we're going to get to the point where we have no solution. Without some very concerted effort during my career, I'll start seeing patients that I could not treat at all. This is not the end of the world as we see it, but we are getting there. We are on our way unless we do something pretty significant about it."
Introduction. Antibiotics were first discovered in 1928 by Alexander Fleming. Each year, 2 million people are infected with antibiotic-resistant bacteria, and 23,000 die as a result, according to the CDC. People are dying because antibiotics that should be killing these harmful bacteria are no longer strong enough. This is due to bacteria not being fully killed by antibiotics, becoming stronger, and then reproducing, creating a resistant strain of bacteria.
Basics of antibiotics. Antibiotics are used for killing harmful bacteria. Before the invention of antibiotics, 30% of all deaths were caused by bacterial infection. Antibiotics kill bacteria by attacking the wall or coating surrounding the bacteria, interfering the bacteria reproduction, or blocking the protein production in bacteria. Usually taken 17 to 14 days, and it is important to take the whole dose your doctor prescribes for you.
Let's get into the history of antibiotics. In 1909, the quote-unquote antibiotic era began when a drug to treat syphilis was discovered. In 1928, the antibiotic penicillin was first discovered by Alexander Fleming wanting to create a magic bullet that will target certain cells. In 1941, it was mass-produced due to a rosebud infection. And from 1939 to 1945, penicillin was used to aid troops in the war effort during World War II. In 1947, chlorophenol was discovered. And in 1948, tetracycline is discovered in the soil and saves a toddler. In 1962, accidental gingivitis cure is discovered. And in 1990, the creator of the Muppets died from a bacterial phenomenon. In 1997, drug resistance became more known to the world, and from 2001 to the present, hundreds of thousands of people worldwide have died from antibiotic-resistant bacteria.
Basics of bacteria. Microscopic organisms that have been around for 3.5 billion years. They are prokaryotic cells, which means they have no nucleus or membrane-bound organelles. There's good bacteria that can help more complex organisms survive, such as assisting with our digestion.
There are different kinds of bacteria, such as coccus, bacillus, rickettsia, mycoplasmas, and spirillums. Coccus are single-cell bacteria that are spherical in shape. They can help perform bodily functions, but can be dangerous in high volumes. Bacillus are found in food. The most common types are Salmonella and E. coli. These are commonly treated with antibiotics. Rickettsia
behaves like a virus. It cannot survive outside of a living organism, and it spreads by infections, such as infected ticks. Mycoplasmas, they have no cell walls, they are unaffected by the use of antibiotics, and they can cause respiratory pneumonia in humans. Spirillum is bacteria associated with STDs and Lyme disease.
Resistance. Bacteria can become resistant to antibiotics designed to kill them. This leads to doctors not being able to treat infections, making it almost impossible for the patient to recover. Resistance occurs when mutations in the bacteria's DNA causes it to be immune. These resistant bacteria then reproduce and create a new strand of resistant bacteria. Doctors can frequently overuse antibiotics, making more resistant bacteria. In 1940, bacteria produced an enzyme to counteract penicillin.
And here is a list here's a process of how antibiotic resistance occurs. In the first stage, high numbers of bacteria, with a few of them that are resistant to antibiotics. In the second stage, it has antibiotics that kill the bacteria causing the illness, as well as good bacteria protecting the body. In stage 3, the resistant bacteria now has preferred conditions to grow and take over. And in stage 4, bacteria can even transfer the drug resistance to other bacteria, causing more problems.
Here is a graph showing antibiotics and bacteria and resistant strands of these bacteria. As you can see, as long as antibiotics have been around, resistant strands have been found and identified. But as we get closer to the present day, you can see even more resistant strands of bacteria being found. This is due to doctors over-prescribing antibiotics to treat infections.
Fact about resistance. Certain bacteria such as the bacteria responsible for MRSA and syphilis are now completely resistant to the antibiotics that were once used to treat them. Antibiotic-resistant bacteria can be transmitted anywhere, even at hospitals. This makes it extremely difficult for doctors to fight as the bacteria mutates. Resistant bacteria can be transmitted by air also.
This is the quote from the mother of Simon Macario. Simon unfortunately died from a bacterial infection that was resistant to antibiotics. She says, "We took him to the hospital in the evening, and by the following morning he was gone. Simon died from rapid onset infection. Months later, we learned from the autopsy results that the cause of his death was methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, known as MRSA, a superbug. At the time, neither my husband nor I have ever heard of it. We've since learned that because of the overprescription and misuse of antibiotics, as well as the use of antibiotics in animals we eat, we've created an environment that causes weaker bacteria to die off, allow our stronger, competing strains to survive. It's ironic to me that same advances in science that led to healthier and longer lives have resulted in the unintended consequence of the creation of bacteria that no longer respond to antibiotics. I can't believe I had to go through what so many families experienced 50 years ago. The death of a child caused by simple bacterial infection. I hope my story can open people's eyes to the severity of the issue. As long as we don't treat antibiotics as a precious resource, only to be used in the most extreme cases, we'll continue to have a false sense of security in medicine. Please think about what you can do today to raise awareness and combat antibiotic resistance. Simon's death will not have been in vain, and future generations will thank you."
How to stop antibiotic resistance. First, avoid foods that are regularly administered with low doses of antibiotics. Secondly, wash your hands. Obvious but effective. Before being prescribed antibiotics, ensure your doctor believes the sickness you have is bacterial, not viral. Choose hospitals and physicians that practice safe antibiotic use, and fighting this threat is a public health priority. It requires a collaborative global approach across sectors to detect, prevent, and respond to these threats when they occur.
Thank you for listening to our presentation on antibiotic resistance. We hope you learned something from this so that we can fight this so that we do not as a species go extinct.